Well, hey folks, my name is Brad, and if you happen to be new to the channel, this is a vlog. Here in the mountains of Vermont, in the wintertime, it's hard to get out and do any metal detecting. So these are just little adventures with my friends and family and what I happen to be up to down here in the shop. And in today's vlog, my family takes a trip into Bennington, Vermont. We visit a wonderful little country store where they were pressing apples to make apple cider, and then we headed over to the Bennington Museum to look at a bunch of their amazing exhibits. At the end of this video, I'm going to be right here in the workshop talking about and walking you through how I wrote the brand new theme for the new show that Eddie and I have been working on all year. The theme is done. The finished product will be at the end of this video, and I hope you enjoy. Next week is a very standard metal detecting video, so if this isn't your thing, hopefully I'll see you next week.
With the chopped up stuff. Now when we press it down and it ends up like that over there, we call it cake.
So what happens to the cake?
Many things. This is probably going to go, if Sarah doesn't want it, it's going to go to our chicken.
Okay.
But you can make, I call it false wine, but it's real wine. Because all you got to do is rehydrate it, put sugar and water together, start the whole fermentation thing. And you can actually make wine with it. Then some people, like when I was a kid up in Barrie, Vermont, that's what they make grappa out of. And it isn't just with grapes, they can do any fruit, you know?
Sure.
Yeah.
You can also use it in your garden. It's great compost.
Oh, interesting.
It's unbelievable. Yeah, there's really no way to waste this stuff.
That's
so
great,
many different things. Some people make bread with it.
Oh, yeah.
Use it for seasoning and stuff.
Guys, it's my ink pot that I found in the dump.
Oh, I saw somebody commented and said that was it.
Keys of Bennington's first churches. Look at those big keys. I just recently found some metal ones. I've never seen wooden ones. Interesting.
I think you use mostly made of wood because the really old. Wow.
What'd you see?
That looks really old.
That
It's hot.
is a fireplace waffle iron.
No way.
Yep.
We need one of those.
Bentley. One of my favorite displays is right over here. You want to come look at it with me? Right here. Up here are all the Vermont coins. Hey, Bentley. Do you recognize these back here with the sun and the mountains?
No.
Look.
Sun Mountain?
Yeah, I have it on my phone.
Why?
Because I like it. It's the Vermont coin. Yeah, all of our dishes are made out of this stuff.
Started way back in the 1800s.
Can you imagine if I found a big old...
Actually, this is 1775 when it begins pottery production.
1775?
1785.
1780. Man, imagine finding some of this thing. What's in there?
Whoa!
What do you see?
Old weapons that they used to use in that big battle.
Whoa.
I want that blade right there.
That's a cool sword, huh?
That sword.
Look at these. This is how they made bullets. They would close those up like a pair of scissors and then pour in melted metal.
Do these look familiar? Dad found one of those, didn't he?
These go to that.
That's right.
Yeah.
There's one you can touch right over here.
Well, you got one at home you can touch.
That's true.
Black.
Your guns are as tall as you.
They are. Oh, yeah.
Pick up your little feather to write with.
They look better.
Sometimes people would use feathers. See how it's got like ink at the bottom?
Oh my gosh, look at this boy from the colonial times.
Oh, these would be your little classmates.
Do you think it was one of the kids' jobs to bring in the firewood? Come on. Man-eating stone shirts? Bentley, this stuff is about the Bennington Triangle. And they say that there's a stone where if you stand on top of it, it'll gobble you up and you'll reappear somewhere else. Maybe in another dimension, maybe on the moon,
What's his dimension?
like a different place.
What do you think of that, Billy?
No.
Nah.
Or maybe back in time. All right, got my studio computer turned on, the session booted up, and my Gibson J40 tuned up, ready to go. People often ask what guitar I'm using in the music that I record for the videos. This almost always is it. It's a 1970s vintage Gibson acoustic. Definitely one of my favorites. We started kind of talking about this new show before we were even done with DeGrau. And Eddie had already started working on the theme song for it before we even kind of figured out what it was going to be. What the story that we're following, the treasure that we're trying to find, kind of there's like an outlaw angle to it. So this riff this melody that Eddie came up with. It's very much kind of cowboy outlaw sounding, which is very cool. And it also kind of takes place in a mysterious, supernatural place in Vermont. So we wanted it to be kind of spooky sounding as well. That was what we started with. That was the idea that we started with. And this was the very original riff that Eddie came up with. It sounded like this. And that repeats for a few measures, and then it has this nice little melody to finish it off before it repeats. Very cool. Very outlaw sounding. So then I'm kind of tasked to build this into a worthy theme song. And admittedly, I kind of took a lot of inspiration from the Westworld theme, if anybody's seen that show, Westworld, on HBO. I love the theme song to that. So already I knew I was going to have some kind of interesting pianos, kind of spooky, backwards sounding instruments, maybe some orchestra in there as well. So Eddie and I kind of jammed on this with the cello, got some ideas. That's what you wanted, like a slide, right? Yes. And I took this riff, which I guess is like a D minor 7 chord. That repeats. It doesn't really go anywhere. It kind of stays in one spot. And I really like my my themes or my music to kind of feel like it's traveling somewhere. So the very first thing I did with this riff before we recorded it is I moved it up an octave, up a register. Kept it exactly the same. Which kind of frees up the lower end to travel, to move. So I recorded this. And I also did not include Eddie's beautiful melody, because I'm going to give that to a different instrument. And then I set to kind of figuring out where this is going to go. So it starts off on the same note. There's that kind of outlaw sound. So this is underneath. And so now we kind of have the chords in place where it's traveling, kind of has a nice build up at the end, and then it returns back to where it came from. And this was kind of the building blocks of the whole song. So once these two parts were in, I kind of set to adding in all of the extra stuff that I think makes these kind of theme songs sound cool. So now I wanted to add in Eddie's, but not just do it on acoustic guitar like these other things, and not maybe electric guitar. It wouldn't be appropriate for this type of sound we're going after. So I thought, thinking about the cello, kind of like a staccato violin, like plucked violin sound. So these are artificial instruments. Basically, you drop in notes that you want these instruments to play, and then it plays them. Here it is, kind of soloed out. Kind of cool. Kind of silly by itself, but in the context of the rest of the song. Just so that doesn't pop up out of absolutely nowhere, right? I added elements of that elsewhere throughout the song to kind of mimic that outlaw sound that we added earlier. When listening to that, it still doesn't have like kind of the low end impact, grittiness that I was looking for, and thinking back to this kind of Westworld theme that I'm drawing inspiration from. Piano would be great for this. And just this first note, as low as audibly possible on one of these artificial pianos, I think would be awesome. So I just dropped in very, very simple low piano, mimicking this guitar. Nice. And that's just the bass line. That's just moving with the chords. And so now Eddie's original riff, you can hear it, it's just always on top. And it's still the main riff, it's still there, but the music actually kind of travels now. So what's next? So this is like the main foundation of the song is here. And I was thinking again, you know, kind of not necessarily a Western, but crime. Maybe there are some murders involved. What is something that can make this sound creepy? The first thing that came to my mind is like a big church bell. So I found this big awesome heavy sounding bell. This old-timey sounding bell. And I dropped those in certain spots. So I didn't want to overdo anything, right? Less is more. But it's really starting to come together now, and this is almost there, honestly. But again, from the very start, I knew I wanted this to kind of be mysterious, but also have like an orchestral element to this. And this is where I went to school for music. This is where my college composition classes really helped me out, composing 3-part and 4-part for voice harmony. I'll show you the computer screen for this because it's hard to explain verbally, but let me move the cameras around so you can show you this. Okay, so this is Pro Tools, and these little blue lines down here are notes of the little fake orchestra that I have working for me. You can hear that's some strings. So the rest of these are all written, but they're all muted out at the moment. And these just follow the bass line. You can hear it in the context of Eddie's guitar. Pretty simple. It just follows the low guitar part. But then I want this to sound huge, right? Like an orchestra is playing. So obviously we need some more parts. I'm gonna slowly unmute these going up. So now this second part, it kind of moves around. It doesn't just, if you're any musical people out there, it doesn't just stick to be the thirds. There's some resolutions that happen. You're there. And as we get towards the end, I really want it to build and build and build and then just drop off at the very end. So we're gonna unmute all of this now. And hopefully you can see this little line go by and see what's happening with the notes. Some notes are going down, some notes are going up, and all of these are kind of working together to travel. And that's, I keep saying that, but that's really what I want the music to do, is to go somewhere. Then it's done. It drops off dramatically at the end. And I had mentioned earlier, we wanted to kind of sound a little bit spooky, supernatural. And what's great about all of these kind of artificial instruments in a computer is there are no limitations for the crazy sounds that you can make. Drawing inspiration from this Westworld theme, which if you've never heard it, go listen to it. It's incredible. I wanted these kind of reversing sounds. It kind of sounds ghost-like. So I found a nice one here. And that's kind of just underneath the whole thing. You don't really even hear it, but it's there and it adds, as well as this other little instrument that it really kind of does its own thing. I basically copy pasted the orchestra part that I created into this, and it does what it wants with it. It's random, the notes that it plays. Every time I listen to it, it's a little bit different, but this is what this sounds like. So that kind of low staccato orchestra part is the part that I just showed you. But those high piano parts are not something I made up. Like I said, every time it plays, it's different. But it just kind of adds kind of an unexpected feel to the song. So anyway, that's how I wrote the theme song to the new show. I'll let it play in its entirety here for you with just kind of the end credit of the vlog. I hope you enjoy it. I love putting these things together, more so than just kind of writing a new song for the channel, because you can kind of start with a vision of what you want it to be visually, you know, from the show, the themes of the show, and then you can kind of build a song around that. I don't do that very often. Usually I just kind of start with a cool little melody and then build a song off of it. It's not very often I get to kind of have this vision of what I want it to be ahead of time and try to get to that goal. And I think Eddie and I both did that pretty well with this. And I should say too, every piece of this I sent to Eddie and got his sign off and took his suggestions. So even though he wasn't in the room with me when this was written, he definitely had input in it as well. So anyway, I hope you enjoy, and I'll see you next week for a good old standard metal detecting video with a special guest that some folks may remember. Thanks for watching.